Hi, welcome, this is John Hine. I want to talk to you about stress, the silent killer. Now, it's an epidemic. I reckon that 90% of all illnesses or conditions today have got a component of stress attached to them. So even if you get something like a cold or flu, it could quite easily be it's because you're stressed, and stress lowers the immune system, so anything that's going around you're going to get. And also stress is associated with major conditions too, like cancer, heart disease, inflammatory diseases, and lots of other stuff we don't even know yet. So a lot of things that are now very common could have a stress component associated with them. The problem with stress is it's an illusion, because what we're doing is we're getting wound up over something we perceive to be more powerful than us. But quite often it isn't more powerful than us. In fact, most times it's well within our grasp to deal with it. But it's also expectation. Nowadays people have really high expectations of their life. So they want to pack everything into it. They want to do the family thing, want to have a career, want to have kids, and simply take too much on. So stress is created, and a lot of getting over stress is dealing with the situation rather than trying to deal with the stress. The stress is a result of creating an abnormal situation, that you're doing something you don't want to do, or you're dealing with something you don't want to deal with, and rather than deal with a situation, you're trying to deal with the stress, like somehow stress is separate from the situation. It isn't. Stress is caused by the situation. So if we deal with a situation, then we tend to deal with the stress too. And expectation is the biggest problem of all, because we think that we can handle things we really can't. We want to do all the things at the same time, you know, the career, the kids, lots of holidays, lots of free time, but we simply can't do it because it's just too much to do. And then you start to feel overwhelmed, and overwhelm is simply a facet of stress. Stress is trying to deal with something which appears to be more powerful than you, but it never is. It's just a thought. And you have probably, if you've seen many of my talks or read my stuff before, I'm really into mindfulness, because mindfulness allows you to see thoughts the way they really are. You start to see situations the way they really are, and then when you see a situation the way it really is, it means you can deal with it. If you're just trying to deal with the stress all the time, then you can't deal with it, because it's a situation, it's not the stress. Stress is actually normal. Stress has always been normal. What we react to is distress, when stress becomes overwhelming and we can't seem to get a handle on it anymore. But as I said earlier, if we deal with a situation, then we don't have to deal with the stress. Quite often though, that people use the word stress when they really aren't stressed at all. For example, you go for an interview for a new job. It's very stressful, or it can be very stressful. You see all the problems before you, you get wound up, you maybe feel a bit tense or want to rush to the loo all the time, because you've put a great expectation of actually getting the job in the first place. So the problem is not the stress, it's the expectation. I want this job really much, and the end of the world is going to happen if I don't get this job. And then you get yourself really stressed up and make yourself really uncomfortable, and then you get the job and it's fantastic and you feel euphoric, it's great. But then comes the day, a month later maybe, when you have to go and start the job, and although you really want the job, you don't want the stress associated with it, because you're thinking maybe maybe the people are going to be horrible, maybe my boss is going to be horrible, can I cope with this situation, you know, this is more responsibility than I've ever had before, can I deal with it? And all that stress is simply an expectation of something, and the expectation it's going to be bad, that something is going to go wrong, that that somehow you're going to be asked to do too much that you can't cope with, and then you feel stressed. But the reality is, if you just go to this new thing, whether it be a job, new situation, new country, new place, whatever, new relationship, you just go to and you take it one step at a time. So if you're constantly mindful, you're constantly present, just dealing with a situation as it is at the moment and worrying about the future when the future comes, all of a sudden it ceases to become stressful. And you go through the whole day and you find out your boss is a good boss, and that the people you're working with are really lovely, and they've invited you out for a coffee, or maybe go out in the evening or something like that, and you can see that these are going to be obviously going to be good friends in the future. You found out that the job is well within your grasp, that you're really achieving all your goals consistently, and by the end of the day, stress is gone, because you now know all the stress, all the problem, all the worrying was simply about expectation. So if we control expectation, just say, well, I'll deal with it when the time comes, or as my dad used to say, cross that bridge when you come to it, and then life tends to pan out in a much more controlled way, because you really are in control all the time, and it's only your mind, that constant raging thoughts about your own inadequacy, that tells you that you can't control it at all, and you control it by just being present. So there are basically 4 stages of stress, or lack of it. There are 4 zones. The first zone is called relaxed. You're not stressed at all. Relaxed is when you're sitting in your backyard, in your back garden, in a nice comfortable chair. You've got nothing to do, it's warm, it's sunny, you've got a gentle breeze, and there's nothing really on your mind, and you feel really good. In this situation, you're generating what is known as alpha waves, and alpha waves are really good for your health, really good for your mind. But the only problem associated with relaxed is it means you never actually do anything in life, because relax is what you should do when you're having a break, when you're having a weekend off, when you're going on holiday, whatever, and it's a really important time. But you don't have any problems, so it's not a stress state at all. It's simply a state with the lack of stress. Second level is called resourceful. Now, resourceful is a great place to be. It's when people talk about being in the zone. Now, when you're in the zone, you're constantly reaching for higher goals that are just beyond your reach, and you're reaching and you're succeeding in achieving them. Your mind and your body are moving in unison, everything is going great, you've got a direct link with your subconscious, and all the information is flowing through from your subconscious into your conscious mind, and you can handle all the situation. You are totally resourceful. That's a brilliant place to be. Unfortunately, you can't be in that place all the time. When you're in that place all the time, you'll get tired if you were trying to be highly resourceful all the time, because what actually happens is your brain goes through various stages. Your brain likes to coast, and you've only actually got 2 hours when you can be in this highly resourceful state. If you're in that for too long, you get tired, and things will start to not go as well. So what your brain actually does is, without you even realizing, it switches into coasting mode. It will go through routines that you're very used to. So if you really know your job off by heart, you know all the processes, you won't be highly resourceful all the time. That will be for peak thinking. And the rest of the time, you'll be coasting. You think about your day when you do things which are really routine. That allows your brain to keep handling the situation with ease. That's when you're being resourceful. But as I said, if you're in resourceful for too long, if you're trying to think at a high level for too many hours, apparently you've only got 2 hours of high thinking value every day. So once you've gone over that 2 hours and you're straining to try and keep doing that, you will tend to make yourself tired really quickly. So you have to allow yourself to go into your routines as well. because they actually allow your brain to cope with what's going on. The next zone is called doubtful. Now when you're feeling doubtful, you've been in the resourceful zone for too long, and you've started to get a bit tired, and things are starting to feel like they're running out of control. You've started firefighting rather than being on top of the situations all the time. All you need to do in that situation is just to take a step back, go out and have a cup of coffee with one of your friends, go out for a walk, get away from the situation that's causing the stress in the first place, maybe take a day off, and then once you got that day off, you've had that time to reset your mind, you'll be back into a resourceful state. And the last state where you really don't want to be, but I think most of us have been in it at one point or another, is despair. Is when things that you're doing are getting just too much for you. You're starting to feel overwhelmed, and you start using terms like, I can't cope, it's all too much for me. When you've got to that state, you probably need some outside help. You may need maybe just to sit down with your boss, sit down with your business partner, sit down with a counsellor, maybe sit down with a coach, simply to get your head back in gear. It's not there's anything major wrong with you, it's simply that you need help, and it's about time you went and got it. And if you work for a company, or you've got a partner who is really good in your business, or you've got in your personal life, you've got people around you who can help you, then go for their help. It's simply that your brain has got confused. You've got overwhelmed because you've tried to take on too much, and now you're starting to pay the price. But it's simply a matter, ask for the help you need, reset your brain, get back into a resourceful state. And remember, one of my teachers in hypnotherapy always used to say, what you have to remember is you're only ever one thought away from being okay. So it's only the thought process that's got out of whack. It's confused your brain. You've started to believe you've lost control, and therefore all you need is a bit of help to get you back on track. So how can you make the most of these mental states, or how can you deal with these mental states most effectively? Well, if you're in a relaxed state, you've got little to do, you feel relaxed, you're enjoying the day, your mind's wandering, it's almost like on the edge of being asleep. You're actually generating alpha waves in your brain, and this is really good because you can use the alpha waves really effectively. So if you're into personal development, you want to learn something new, you want to memorize something, maybe you've got a CD or you've downloaded a program about how to develop yourself or change in a certain way. So you make the most of the situation. So while you're in total relaxation mode, just connect yourself to the program that you want to listen to, and because you're relaxed, don't even bother listening too closely. Just allow your mind to wander. And in this state, the defense mechanisms in front of the subconscious will be lowered, and so stuff gets in easier. So if you're trying to get new change worthy stuff into your mind, into your subconscious, to try and change the way you live your life and do a certain aspect of your life, then this is the time to do it. Because your defenses are lowered, you can make changes, you can get all the good information going into your unconscious, and you've made the best of that situation. You've not only rejuvenated your body, you've also rejuvenated your mind, you've reset yourself, and you've started on a new, better path for you. The second stage of being resourceful. Now, as I said earlier, being resourceful is a really great state to be in, because resourceful is in high alpha waves, low beta waves, and that beta is when you're very, very attentive, when you're very sharp. But if you go into too high into beta, it brings you into the distress state, or the not feeling resourceful. But when you're in the zone, you're in low beta waves, high alpha waves, so your mind is really open. There is a brilliant connection between your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, and all the information you need is flowing into your conscious mind, and that's why you're reaching for goals and you're hitting them every single time. So what you do is, as I've said, it's only for 2 hours a day when you can do what is known as high level thinking. So if you've got something you really have to think and figure out, use those 2 hours wisely, because when you've used them up, then the level of competence starts to fall, and you really need to be coasting, doing routines, rather than trying to be at high level all the time. Okay, so use those 2 hours wisely. If you're not, if you've then gone into the doubtful state, what can you do about it? Well, as I've said, you can go out, take a few days off, reset your brain, start to review whether you actually want to be in this situation, because quite often we endure situations because we think we don't have an alternative. And of course, if you take the time out, you can think of a new plan, or just to see your current life in a different way. It's all about perspective. Einstein said life is just about perspective. It depends on what perspective you take to how you see life, your life in a different way. So take some time off, be with friends, forget about work, forget about the situation, get help from other people. There's always people around you who want to help out. If you just ask them in the right way. If they say no, that's okay. They're obviously not your friend anyway, so just leave that as it is. But there are a lot of people who want to help you too. So how can you help yourself? Practice mindfulness. I'm really into mindfulness. As you may know, I've taught mindfulness in movement in the House of Parliament in London. And mindfulness allows you to be on the spot now. You're not worried about the past, you're not concerned about the future, you're just seeing things very clearly now. You're seeing those negative thoughts come in and out, and you're ignoring them, or you're just looking at them and they dissolve away. That's the one thing you have to understand. If you keep on thinking negative things, just look at those negative thoughts. Don't try and control them, don't try and suppress them, just look at them, and you'll find they start to just dissolve away in front of you. So mindfulness is a very good process to actually learn. And I learned it when I was in my teens with a Buddhist Lama who taught me how to use mindfulness of thought, which covers all the different aspects of mindfulness. And there's lots of different aspects of mindfulness. But being aware of what your thought processes are is very important. So if you use mindfulness, and I'll be teaching you that inside the membership site, if you use mindfulness, you'll get a tremendous control over your life, tremendous control over what you're thinking, and therefore tremendous control over your levels of stress, and you can take control. So what could you do to help yourself? i.e. mindfulness. Also, you can learn Tai Chi. Tai Chi is very good for keeping you locked into the present moment, and it allows, in the 20 minutes that you're doing, 20 minutes, half hour you're doing your Tai Chi or Qigong, your mind is completely involved in what you're doing, so you can't think about anything else. And quite often, if you actually start your Tai Chi practice by thinking, I've got this thought, I've got this concern to think about, but I'll put it to the back of my mind, quite often by the time you finish the Tai Chi practice, you've actually solved the problem, because you've got out of your own way. And getting out of your own way is really important, because we all have the resources we already need, except we constantly try to micromanage and get in the way of the processes in our mind that would solve the problem in the first place. Also, you can do yoga. Yoga can be very good for calming you down, quietening your mind and centering you, and help you focus on the present moment. Now, if you're in the last zone, which is despair, you need help. You need probably some professional help. Not because you're crazy, you're not. It's simply that you've taken on too much. The situation has become too much for you and you're no longer thinking clearly. So Maybe you need to talk to a coach. Some companies have their own coaches who can help you out. Maybe you need to talk to a counsellor just to get your head back in gear, put it in the right place. As I said, it doesn't mean you're crazy, it doesn't mean you've lost control, it just means you've got tired and you've got a bit overwhelmed and you've started to think negatively and you've got into that vicious downward spiral. But someone on the outside who's very skillful will help you reset that thought process and you can take charge of the situation again. Before you get into that despairing state, try to sort the problem out. If you're in a situation that is not good for you, it's not conducive for you, you might have to think about changing it. Ask for help from your friends, your family, people who can give you great support. Go for plenty of walks. Do Tai Chi, do yoga, practice mindfulness. These are all the things that can help you keep control of what your thought process and bring you into terms of what's going on in your situation and how you can possibly change it. That's very, very important. So, don't put yourself in stressful situations. Quite often when I'm coaching people, or have been coaching people in the past, we look at situations they find stressful. And I'll give you an instance. This guy's called Jim, and he's a representative for his company. He's a mid-range manager, and he quite often has to go out and he has to meet people. He's booked his appointment. He allows half an hour just in case he gets held up in traffic. He jumps in the car and he drives away. After half an hour or so, he's stuck in a traffic jam. We've all been there. I've been in traffic jams, but they're taking so long that people get out and start sunbathing and take their shirts off to get a tan. So sometimes you just get into this situation where the traffic is just too bad and you're stuck on the freeway, on the motorway, and you're going to be late for your appointment and you get really, really stressed. You don't want to tell them you're going to be late because you know it could affect you. So you hold off and you get this big conflict and you start to feel overwhelmed and very stressful. In the end, you have to call them up and say, look, I'm going to be late. Can we reschedule the appointment? But there is a much better way than that. If you plan out your day the day before and you work on the assumption that something's going to go wrong, you allow enough time to accommodate that situation. But the other thing you do is, in Jim's case, what he should have done was send all the information, got it ready the day before in very simple ways, maybe using bullet points or notes or whatever, and sent him the full copy of what they're going to discuss, the notes of what they're going to discuss, so that on the day he realises about half an hour before the appointment that he's stuck in traffic and he can't actually make the appointment. He just gives him a call, said, look, I'm held up in traffic, I'll get there as fast as I can, but if in the meantime, if you want to talk to me on Skype or FaceTime, that you can hold a discussion and say, right, call up all the notes I sent you the day before and you can have a discussion on the spot. I don't know about you, but I do it all the time. I'm always doing Skype calls with people, sorting things out, talking about situations that we want to resolve or whatever, or doing coaching. So being prepared is the most important thing, so that your mind is going out the day before and seeing the possibilities for problems and dealing with those problems the day before. So if they don't arise, the other person who you're going to have the meeting with is going to be really impressed because all the stuff's arrived there the day before. It's obvious you're prepared, you know what you're talking about, and you can have a really good meeting. And the chances are you'll get the contract, you'll get the business, whatever, because you are prepared when most people aren't. So don't put yourself in stressful situations. The other thing that people find is dealing with awkward people. It's no fun dealing with awkward people, so long as you've got that perspective that you don't like them, you don't like what's going on, and you find it very difficult to deal with them. Instead of that, I always teach my clients to turn it on their heads. So think of this awkward person as a game, and that you have got to play the game where you can communicate with this person in a really good fashion and try and win them round. You don't have to invest anything in the situation. You're just trying your best, and you become as innovative as possible because it's no longer really stressful. It's simply a game. So if you can turn stressful situations into a game and allow your subconscious mind to feed all the information through, because when you're playing games you become very resourceful, because it's not that important. You haven't put a lot of expectation onto conquering this particular situation. And also you can actually find out how that person actually communicates. Listen to what they say. If they use phrases like, "I see what you're saying," "I can't see that," that's called a visual way of communicating. Or if they say, "I can hear what you're saying," and they're obviously very auditory attuned to sound, to information that comes in through their ears. Or if they're very visual, which is the predominant situation nowadays, where we are bombarded by visual things all the time, so people tends to become visual. And one of my clients said he was having real problems with this designer in his company, and he just didn't get on with him at all. And I said, listen to how he uses words, listen to the words he says. And he found out that he was visual. He would say, "I can see what you're saying, I can't see that." And so when he went to discuss any meetings with any situations, any meetings with him, he would use very visual language. So he used visual language, and all of a sudden he could communicate with this guy really well, and it turned out he was a nice guy. It was simply that they couldn't see what each other was saying, because one of them was very visual and the other guy wasn't using visual terminology, so his brain didn't cotton on so quick onto it. So turn it into a game, listen to how they talk, listen to the phrases they use, and start using the same sort of phrases. Next thing is, we tend to over-exaggerate situations and we think they're worse than they really are. So it's all you need to do is take a step back, be present, be mindful, see all those negative thoughts in a completely detached way. And as I said, when you look at something in a very detached way, all those negative thoughts tend to dissolve away, and you just see the situation as it really is. And once you see the situation as it really is, you can develop a strategy for dealing with that situation. And 99 times out of 100, everything is controllable, and you can work out every situation in a good way for you and for the people you're dealing with.